Hey, how's it going guys, Chris here, and welcome to another Battlefield 1 weapon guide. In this video, we're going to be focusing on an old Italian revolver, the Bodeo 1889, which, despite being one of the game's most historical guns, was a well-trusted sidearm which had a surprisingly long life cycle. Featuring a 6-shot rotating cylinder, the double-action Model 1889 Bodeo service revolver was one of Italy's most popular secondary weapons during the Great War. The gun was chambered for the unique 10.35mm Italian Ordnance black powder round, and it also utilised a loading gate on the right side of the hammer, and a ejector rod which swiveled out from underneath the barrel for replacing spent ammunition, one cartridge at a time. Unlike a lot of other revolvers back then, pulling the trigger whilst the loading gate was open wouldn't actually allow the hammer to strike, and instead it'd just rotate the cylinder over to the next chamber, which would have been quite a handy little trick, making it a bit easier to reload without the need to move that cylinder around manually. And we can actually see this happening in the game whenever you reload the gun. Two separate versions of Bodeo revolvers were designed, the first one having a rounded barrel and a trigger guard, built specifically for field officers, and the other, which looked a bit cooler in my opinion, had an octagonal barrel along with a folding trigger, with the trigger guard completely removed, which probably would have been designed to make the gun easier to carry, and as a bit of a safety feature to help prevent the gun from going off in a soldier's pocket, which definitely wouldn't have been very fun. And it's these variations we get to use in Battlefield 1, being mainly designed for infantry use up at the front lines. So up until the year of 1891, the Italians were using an old French revolver called the 1873 Chamelot Delvine, which was fine enough and did the job, but after seeing many years of use, it was about time that a new military revolver stepped in as a replacement. A slightly lighter, smaller one, which would have been easier for a soldier to wield. Two different Italian gun makers set out to develop and redesign the old French revolver into something a bit more practical. And in 1889, the Italian Firearms Commission took the designs from both companies to form the improved M1889 Bodeo revolver, named after Carlo Bodeo, the leader of the commission. This gun would go on to be adopted by the Italian army a couple of years later in 1891. And up to about 200,000 Bodeo revolvers would be made between the years of 1889 and 1925. It was a simple weapon to manufacture, and it was robust in design. Though with semi-automatic pistols being the new trend for the new century, just before the Great War, the Italians planned to replace their Bodeo revolvers with a new contender, the Glicenti Model 1910, which looked a bit like an Italian Luger pistol. Despite being the old-fashioned veteran, the Bodeo revolver was never actually replaced like originally intended, as the Glicenti Model 1910 wasn't quite as well received as initially planned. It was fairly weak, and it had a pretty complex firing system, and so a lot of Italian soldiers ended up turning back to their old trustworthy Bodeo revolvers instead. More modern semi-automatic handguns were produced alongside the Bodeo, but rather than being left in the past, the gun continued to be produced and used by several armies, serving in 2 world wars and many other conflicts in between. Now let's talk about Battlefield 1. The Bodeo 1889 has a maximum damage value of 53 up to 10 meters, and a minimum damage value of 17.5 beyond 38.5 meters. So when we compare that to the other sidearms, we can clearly see that the gun packs a pretty big punch. Not only does it dish out some high close range damage, like the other revolvers do, but it's also going to deal slightly more at longer ranges too, being able to kill in 1 less bullet than the Medic's auto revolver, and 2 less bullets than the No. 3 and the Bulldog. Along with it dealing a stronger amount of damage overall, the gun's bullets are also going to be able to retain that high damage for longer too, as the Bodeo's 2-hit kill range lasts all the way up to 60 meters, giving it a 6-meter advantage over all of the other revolvers, apart from the Gasser, which has an even longer range still. With a generally stronger damage output over distance, this allows you to drop enemies in less bullets than normal, though a single headshot up close still won't quite be enough to put your target down hard and fast. But landing a headshot between 16 and 20 meters will still bump the damage up enough to take an enemy out of the fight in just 2 bullets, as opposed to 3. The Bodeo 1889 has the exact same rate of fire as the Medic's auto revolver, so it's gonna be able to shoot at the speed of 225 rounds per minute. This isn't particularly very fast, as both the Howder pistol and the Bulldog revolver can still fire 15% quicker, and pretty much all of the semi-auto pistols other than the Mars automatic all have faster fire rates too. But when we take a step back and specifically look at the revolvers, the Bodeo can outshoot both the Gasser and the No. 3. So when compared to other similar weapons in the revolver category, the Bodeo's sort of in the middle, when it comes down to how fast it can shoot those bullets at. Muzzle velocity is also kind of average too, as each round is going to whiz through the air at a fairly normal speed of 255 meters per second. Although this is slightly faster than pretty much all of the other revolvers, it's still not exactly a huge difference, and it probably doesn't mean that targets running around in the distance are going to be super easy to line up and shoot down. It might give you a slight edge at medium ranges, which complements the gun's extra damage over distance, a bit more than otherwise, but it's still not going to match up to the semi-automatic pistols, which all generally have much higher bullet travel speeds. If you want to whip the Bodeo out to finish off an opponent in a gunfight, then it's going to take 0.55 seconds to do so, which is the same speed as the M1911. It's not exactly got the quickest deploy time, being a tiny bit under average, though you're probably not going to notice a 0.05 second difference, so it's not really going to be anything to worry about. When it comes down to the Bodeo's recoil pattern, it's going to be on par with most of the other revolvers as far as precision is concerned, though it's perhaps not going to be quite as stable. The horizontal figure of 1 for both left and right kick is going to make it as accurate as the auto revolver and the Gasser. So although it's less accurate than all of the semi-automatic pistols, it's still not miles away from those other heavy damage dealing sidearms, with the Bulldog being the only revolver with a smaller amount of horizontal drift. Because the Bodeo has a vertical recoil figure of 5 though, which just so happens to be the second highest vertical recoil figure of all the sidearms in the game, just after the Gasser, you're probably going to notice that the gun bounces up a tad more than you're probably used to if you're a fan of the other revolvers. Not quite as much as the Gasser, but still more than the others, which isn't exactly a massive problem up close, but it just means that you're likely going to have the best results by firing a tad slower against opponents at mid to longer ranges, to avoid shooting over your target's head as the gun jolts upwards. Though if you're up against someone in the distance, because the Bodeo has such a low ADS spread while stationary, it can often be best to try and stand as still as you can whilst you open fire, as this will allow you to be much more accurate, making it easier to land successive shots in all the right places. With the Bodeo utilising a fixed cylinder holding a maximum of 6 rounds at a time, this isn't really much when compared to the other sidearms. It's got the same ammo capacity as all of the other revolvers, so in that respect, it's pretty much on par with them, which isn't exactly a big surprise. But generally, 6 bullets isn't really very much to work with, especially if you get outnumbered and you need to deal with several opponents one after the other. But one factor that really makes the Bodeo's bullets even more of a precious commodity is the fact that the gun reloads so bloody slow. Because you'll need to replace each and every cartridge individually using that ejector rod, it can take up to 8 whole seconds to perform a full reload, and anywhere between 3 and 7 seconds to top the gun up with more ammo otherwise. Unless you've got a good hiding spot, reloading can be a very risky thing to do, and you're going to have to be quite smart about how and when you choose to do it, if you plan on staying alive to see that reload out. But anyway, in conclusion, the Bodeo 1889 is another heavy-hitting revolver that has a bit more range and power over distance than some of the others, making it a truly deadly firearm to be up against in the right hands. Its fire rate doesn't exactly stand out from the crowd, but because it generally kills in less bullets, this helps to lower its time to kill significantly, making the gun's speed a less important factor. However, this is only relevant if you can land your shots precisely on target, and with the Bodeo having a bit more upwards kick than most, weapon stability might be a bit harder to deal with whilst lining up shots over distance. This helps to balance the gun, literally forcing you to shoot slower when you're up against an enemy further away, as if you fire at the full fat 225 RPM, then you're probably going to miss shots as they fly over your target's head. Only having 6 rounds at your disposal, along with having a pretty miserable reload time, really knocks the weapon back a notch, making you a very vulnerable target in between those gunfights. Though so long as you have enough ammo to take care of your opponent, the Bodeo can provide enough knockout stopping power to see you through most battles, so long as you can handle the extra kick that comes with it. So that's pretty much it for another one, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video and maybe learned a thing or two, and if you did, let me know it by giving that like button a smack on the way out. Subscribe for loads more content in the future, and I'll be seeing you in that next episode.
you.